Hello guys and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about stats and how they work, so you know if you start to play another character, what you need to aim for and how to develop it. So first of all stats are separated in two groups. As shown here, we have primary stats and secondary stats. Now primary stats are the stats like stamina and strength, agility or intellect, depending off the type of armor that you are wearing. So if you are plate user, your gear will have strength on it, leather gear will have agility on it, and cloth gear will have intellect on it. Now every single piece of equipment will have stamina and either one of these depending of the armor type, and those are primary stats, and they are stats that are increasing only by the item level of the piece itself. So the higher item level it is, the higher values of stamina, strength, agility or intellect you will have. Now pretty much that's that about primary stat. Now the main part is secondary stats. So secondary stats are hit expertise, attack power, spell power, armor penetration, haste and crit. Now first thing that you need to fix when you are building a character is expertise and hit. Now expertise is something that it's only for melee DPSs and tanks and hunters. So when I say melee DPS, I will always include hunter in that, because hunters are basically working like melee DPSs, but they are ranged. They are a little bit different than others. But with casters, so healers and ranged DPSs that are not hunters, you do not need expertise. Now what is expertise? So expertise values are removing chance for you to for boss to dodge or parry your attacks. Now we have here two different values, so 26 expertise and 56. So 56 expertise you are aiming only if you are a tank, and that's parry chance. So if you have 56 expertise, boss cannot parry your attacks. Now because you are tank, you are always in front of the boss and boss can't parry you. If you are behind the boss, boss can't parry your attacks because you are behind him, but still he can dodge. And there is this 26 expertise that is removing a chance for boss to dodge your attacks while you are behind him. And as a DPS, you will always be behind the boss. That's your aim. So boss cannot parry your attacks, because if you are standing in front of the boss, he will parry a lot of your attacks. And if you aim for 56 expertise, you will just lose so much DPS in terms of stats. So for the tank, you need to be in front of the boss. You are aiming for 56 expertise, so boss cannot parry your attacks because you are constantly in front of him. And even though for the tanks this is even a little bit, you know, like pushing it too much, there's no need. Only for like Sindragosa and bosses that have parry haste ability. So parry haste is something that whenever boss parries your attacks, he strikes really fast. For you know, 2 times, like really fast attacks, and it occurs every single time whenever boss parries. And only certain bosses have those kind of things, like Halion and Sindragosa. But for other bosses you don't have that mechanic, so it's not that important, but it's there. And for the DPSs you are aiming for 26. Now for the casters you don't have this because you are attacking from the range, so this stat is kinda worthless for casters and healers. Now the second important stat is hit. Now hit is the most important, right? I just make it this way, but hit is the most important, then expertise if you are a melee DPS or a tank. But yeah, now hit. So what hit does, hit reduces the chance to miss whenever you do an ability. So for the melees, that's 9%. So whenever you have 9% of hit, your abilities cannot miss. Now this does not include your melee swings, so auto attacks, but abilities. So any ability you do, if you have 9% of hit, you will never miss it. For the casters, that's 17%. Now it's pretty huge difference here. Okay, and why is that? That's because you know, as a melee you have expertise also on top of the hit. Okay, so if you have expertise on top of the hit and as a caster you don't have expertise at all, to balance it off you need to have more hit rating as a caster, just to make both of these types of DPSs more equal in terms of preparing them for actual endgame content. Now for the next thing that we have is attack power and spell power, that are basically damage modifiers. So whatever if your ability does 100 damage and you have X amount of attack power or a spell power, depending on your role, that amount of the damage is getting increased. Now this is different for every single class, and for even though not just for every single class, but for every single ability and spell, because every spell has different amount that is getting modified by attack power and spell power, and that's something, if you really know, if you really want to know how your spells work with your class, you need to search that for yourself. But basically, you know, some abilities are getting 105% on top of base damage plus your spell power, and some other ability does like 200%. So it's really different from class to class. But basically, it's a damage modifier. Nothing really special there. Armor penetration. It's something again that only applies for melee DPSs and hunters, and there is a lot of misconception here about this stat. So let me explain. First of all, you need 1400 armor penetration to have on your tooltip 100% armor reduction. Now that is true, but for the basically for the players. So if you are attacking if you are at level 80 and you have 100% armor pen and you are attacking level 80, so in PvP that would be true. But in PvE content, bosses bosses are not level 80, bosses are level 84, 83, depending, you know. So you need more. The 1400 armor pen is not reducing 100% of armor of the bosses. Now it does remove 88.3%. Now, that's why it's important to have Sunder armor or expose armor. And if you have 5 stacks of Sunder armor and expose armor on top of your 1400 armor penetration, you will ignore 86.83% of armor. That's even as well. On top of this, you need a Fairy Fire, that is minor armor reduction debuff, and it further increases the damage, the armor that you are reducing from your target, and it goes to 87.87. So what that means, you are basically never ignoring 100% of armor of your target, but while Shattering Throw is active. Now Shattering Throw, that's why it's important to have Warrior to precast this Shattering Throw, because Shattering Throw is being casted. And if you have boss that basically can be attacked before certain roleplay, so this is not including Lich King fight, this is not including DBS, unfortunately. Well, it does include DBS, but if you wipe it. But anyway, if you have bosses that are active before roleplay, you can just precast this with DBM timer, and you instantly have shattering throw up when the boss fight starts, and that's the only way to ignore 100% of boss's armor, and DPS increase is really huge. So you should try to maximize shattering throw, especially in the periods where you need to burn the boss down, and especially if you have multiple warriors so they do not overlap. Having some weak auras will help with that a lot. Now next stat we have is Haste. Now Haste for melee DPSs, it does increase melee swing timer, so your auto attacks will be faster. So for some classes this can be really good, but in general, you know, melee DPSs and hunters will go for armor penetration, but casters, because they don't have armor penetration, will go for the haste. Now a little bit different thing we have with retribution paladins that are not going for armor penetration but for haste, but you know, that's a little exception there. But in general, for melee DPSs, you will have faster melee swings, but for the casters, haste has its, you know, its own purpose there. So basically, GCD or global cooldown is something that occurs every time you hit an ability. You have that circle that is going around, and basically while that is happening you cannot use other abilities. And it's 1 second. So what Haste does here is basically with all casters, you have that button that you are spamming, so like Shadow Bolt, like Wrath, and so on and so on. And basically those abilities are usually on 1.5 seconds of a cast time. And you do your things that are like longer casts, and then you are back to spamming. And whenever you are back to spamming, if you do not have enough haste to reduce that cast time of that ability from 1.5 second to 1 second, you are basically with every cast wasting half a second of basically not doing anything. So that's why it's important to have enough haste to reduce that spam button cast time to 1 second. So whenever you are back to spamming, which is the thing that you will mostly do, you basically just have one ability out every global cooldown. And that's something that's really important. This also it's different from class to class. It's different from class to class for how much exact haste you need and so on, but that's the general idea. Also on top of that, haste increases the with your dots how fast they will tick. So the more haste you have, they will do basically the damage they need to do, they will do it faster, so you can reapply it more often and do more damage with that as well. But this global cooldown thing is basically like, you know, like having hit, you know, it's fixing your character to make it viable, to make it work. So that's something you should take care about. And last, we have critical strike. This is basically whatever you do after all of this processing of your spells, there is a chance for your ability to do twice as much damage. Now, some classes in their talents have critical bonus damage modifier. So if you do 100 damage with ability and that ability crits, you will do 200 damage. But if you inside your talents have bonus critical damage increased by 30%, you will, instead of 100 more damage, do 130 more damage, and that's depending on the classes. So critical is something that is really nice to have. It doesn't fix your character because nothing really, there is no classes that are really need to have a certain amount of crit to be playable. It's something that is like end game, that is For some classes they are not using it at all, but for some classes it is really important at end game when you fix your hit, when you fix your global cooldown, and then you can go with it. One of the classes on top of my mind is Fire Mage, that is really depending on a crit, and yeah, if you are one of those classes, you definitely should, after you fix hit and haste, go for the crit. Okay, hopefully this helped you a lot to understand how the stats work. Hopefully you are subscribed to the channel, and if not, please do so, like the video if you liked it, and share with your friends, so you can help me grow the channel and I can put out more content. Okay, thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.